Okay, Star Citizen Live is over. So I am going to speed up and get to the part where it starts. Here we are. And this is gameplay devs.
Hi, everybody.
What
Welcome
about ships?
to another episode of Star Citizen Live, our Invictus All Vehicles Gameplay Q&A. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee.
It's going to be a short one if it's about gameplay.
And joining us on the show this week are a few esteemed members from the various gameplay feature teams throughout Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development that work on features related to the spaceships and vehicles. It's always hard. We used to just say ships, and then we started making more ground vehicles, and I'm like, no, you got to call it vehicles now, not just spaceships. Spaceships just dismiss all the great work of ground vehicles. And now I'm already lost in the show.
Largely
Before
pointless.
we get started, I wanted to call out a couple things for folks who were questioning some of the questions and some of the discussion from last week's show and stuff. A lot of the questions that are submitted into our...
Oh, we're getting defensive about the fact that we put on a bad show last week. The show was bad last week. Do not blame us that the show was bad. The show was bad last week. Eat it, accept it, and that's it. I don't know what's so hard about that.
Threads when we pull questions.
This is going to be our fault somehow.
Things that obviously people want to see, people want to know about, people are anxiously waiting for. It doesn't mean they're actually in active development. If a thing is not in what we call active development, which is where a person is literally like their tasks this week are to work on a thing, there's usually no new information to give. Folks who have followed the project for any long period of time will tell you that in the earlier days when we were still all figuring out what Star Citizen was and figuring out what weekly content was and stuff.
That was in the early days because they're not figuring it out what it is now. You still don't know what it is.
We were sometimes
don't know what it is.
Quite vociferous and loquacious with our verbiage, and now I'm just reading it from the source. Basically, we would just talk pie in the sky. Maybe we'll do this, and maybe we'll do this and stuff. And sometimes it can set expectations that are unfair.
You still do
to
that.
set in people. So over the last few years, you've probably noticed that we hold things a little closer to our vest. If a thing is not in active development, we try not to talk about it too much because there's just too much about game development that can change between now and the moment when we actually start to work on it. So for that reason, I'm sure you've noticed in our storytelling, ISC, SCL, that we tend to talk more about things that are coming in the next 3 to 6 months.
ISC and SCL has largely been fantastic. Last week's show was not good. Last week's show was 50 minutes of what it's like to be a ship developer and 10 to 15 minutes of questions answered. If you are incapable of answering questions, why are you doing a Q&A for ships? Why are you having the show in the first place?
As opposed to things that are coming in the next year to 2 years and stuff like this. So in the question thread, there were a lot of questions like, what about personal VIP transport and stuff like this, which is not currently in active development? Or
then answer it. Not currently in active development.
what about
Move on.
What about medical gameplay, which is, while it does involve vehicles to a certain extent, is far more an FPS related feature than it is a spaceship feature. We're going to focus the show, as we always try to do, on the stuff that is currently in active development and the features that folks are aware of and can play with right now, things like salvaging and mining and combat and stuff like that.
If you're unwilling to do a Q&A, knowing full well what the questions will be, then don't do one.
A good example of this, there was a question about bounty hunting V2. For instance, there's a big question was voted up about how's bounty hunting V2 running along. Bounty hunting V2 is actually not currently in active development. It's been backburned a bit because we've determined that there are other prerequisite features that are necessary to make it work. Things like a restraint system, quantum tracking, the ability to track people through quantum travel. FPS and ship scanning, we all know that needs additional work, and basically the law and security refactor. So when those things come online and those things are developed, then the eye of development Sauron will turn back to bounty hunting V2. So like this.
Fair.
So just a great example of how sometimes a thing is in active development, sometimes it becomes not in active development.
Yeah, that is the point. You are proving your point wrong. Right? You're literally proving your point wrong. Looks like it's not so hard to answer, you know, like exactly. Now we know. Now nobody's going to ask about it anymore. Done, dusted. This whole thing of we don't talk about it is the worst fucking decision these people have ever made in their entire lives, and it's ridiculous. If there's a Q&A and you can answer it with that question, and that has never been answered before, which that has never been answered before as far as I can remember, why wouldn't you just answer it?
And just a little bit of me at the top of the show wanting to discuss why we sometimes ask certain questions and why sometimes we don't ask certain questions.
This is such a weird discussion because it is being defensive against doing a objectively bad show last week. It was just a bad show. It was an unenjoyable watch for a regular backer that was hoping to have a bunch of questions answered around ships and the stuff about how they work or whatever. I mean, all the people that were on the show were artists. So how much could they really ask? But it feels like there's an inability to be like, you know what? We could do better. Because you can. You can. And it's that simple. Because you just did. You just did. And if the answer has to be in the thread by a community manager or a developer or something like that, then that's how it has to be. I don't think it makes sense for Jared to just sit there and go, not in active development, we need this, this, and this. Maybe that should have been the show, right? This was the most healthy thing I've heard from on the negative side in a long time. And I hope they take that feedback and go, that was awesome. Do more of that. Nobody's going to get mad. I saw some person get mad that they saw Bounty Hunting V2 get pushed aside because we obviously saw it on a roadmap before. But how do you argue against the logic of there's a lot more tech to make Bounty Hunting V2 good, so we're not going to focus on that? Well, we are, because they're going to focus on the tech to make it better, right? There's no point in delivering Bounty Hunter V2 without the things that make Bounty Hunter V2. And they clearly prioritized other things, like getting the Squadron 42 stuff in and stuff like that, right? There's only so many developers and all that. Like, there's clearly reasons for it. Sometimes you just have to say them. And we're not going to talk about things that are not in active development is totally acceptable, but it's not acceptable when you have put something on a roadmap, kind of taken it off, and have not really addressed it in a while.
If we're not asking it and we're not talking about it, you can generally assume that it's not something that's currently in active development. And we'll get to those topics when we get closer to that time.
No, I will not generally assume anything. You need to speak. You need to communicate. It's literally your and the community's team's job. So no, when something falls off and something gets deprioritized, it should be communicated to the community that it did and a reasonable reason why. And then when somebody questions where it is, you have something to point at. Nope, this is what it is. Check out this video. Bang, it's right here. Done and dusted. You never have to answer it again. This is ridiculous to say. I'm sorry.
Just a little bit for me. All right. So with that, let's start the show proper. We have 4.
For example, if this moved off the roadmap and this was posted by Jake somewhere, you point to it and you're done.
Beautiful people, some of my favorite people, and Elliot Maltby joining us on the show this week. So let's get to meeting them. Sorry, just had to. Elliot, I'm sorry, you took the hit there, so we're going to start with you. Elliot, Hi, say hi.
Deserved.
Tell everybody who you are and what you do for Star Citizen.
Hello, I'm Elliot Morby, and I am the lead mission designer on the mission design team. So
Where did this
I make
beard
all
come
those
from?
missions that work perfectly for all of you.
He's starting to look like a
And at no point do you sit
adolescent
in a corner
instead of
during
a child.
Decon Belgium and just scroll through teams, finding out what this mission is broken, that mission is broken, and
I don't get a rest. Just everyone constantly, hey, your mission's broken. It's like, yep, I built it. I know it's broken. I do it on purpose.
Yogi, tell everybody who you are, what you do for Star Citizen.
Elliot Yogi. Okay.
Unmute yourself. Tell everybody who you are and what you do for Star Citizen.
I was muted. Yeah. Hello. My name is Yogi. I'm a principal vehicle programmer. Sorry. And I deal mostly with space combat and the flight experience. I'm somewhat of a link between Richard and Thorsten.
Yogi's apparently the devil.
That's what I do. So I
if
do
you read
coding
Spectrum.
and designing things, handle stuff like general flight model development, ESP, and stuff like that. So all these complaints when something is broken usually also go to me. Not mission related though.
Fair enough. I like that. The link between Richard and Thorsten. So let's go to Richard. Rich, tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Oh, this is gonna be a good show.
Yes, I'm basically Richard Towler, and I'm the lead designer on the vehicle experience side. So it's balance, it's gameplay with vehicles, and basically working with Yogi and anyone else involved with the kind of general vehicle experience to make the vehicle gameplay good in Star Citizen.
And last but certainly not least,
Killed my
Thorsten, tell
Gravlev.
everybody who you are, what you do for Star Citizen.
Hello, I'm Thorsten. I'm lead systems designer and I complain a lot.
That is true.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. And of course, as you've seen,
Yeah, get
all
Chad
of our
Thorsten.
major designers and programmers live in the void, and we're so glad that you can join us from the void this week to take questions. So just two top shelf questions before we get into all the questions from the backers this week. Yogi and Rich, master modes is finally this big thing. You work on a lot of things, but master modes, this enormous project of yours is finally out in the wild with 323. How's that been? How's that going? How's that make you feel? Are you done? Are we walking away from it? Is this the last thing, or what happened here? How happy are we?
Well, so I posted about my feelings concerning master mods about a couple of weeks ago in Spectrum. So in general, I'm very happy with the progress and what we achieved, because the swapping to the master mode check meant that we had to update all the ships all in one bulk. So we could not really stretch this out to multiple releases, because our data system is not able to have like two different tuning values or two different ways of keeping tuning ships balanced.
That would have been a bad experience anyway.
So we had to squish all the ships, and just to be clear, we have about 140 different ship records in the game. So we had to update them all and take the other related tech from Squadron, like the new aiming system, the ways how the weapons work, the gimbaling system, and so on, plus part of the UI updates, and squish this all into 323. Now we knew we knew before that this was like a pretty tough ask to do, because it's just a lot of work. So overall, I'm really happy with the progress. Of course, there's a couple of let's say, balance issues. There's a couple of balance offenders, of course, right? But it was kind of like, there's no, we don't need to, we don't need to say it's perfect. Like we never said it's going to be perfect on this release, right? But it builds a far better foundation from which we can iterate faster going forward. So beyond 323.
What about you?
I'm just gonna say, master modes. I have been in PvP way more often, and have engaged with it way more often than in the previous flight model, which was impossible.
You, Rich?
Yeah, and that's basically where we're at. It's about moving towards the better foundation for the future of the game. So it's been really cool to get here. But for us, it's just the start of this. But it's been a really cool journey. I mean, this journey started for us.
But it's boring. LOL impossible. For me, I can only speak for myself. This was my experience between the two. Very recently, in the last week or so, I've been hardcore training to try to get better at master modes. In the previous flight model, I did the same thing for about a month, and it took me a month to go 2-15 in Arena Commander. 3 days ago, I went 5-0 in Arena Commander. I don't know, man.
Wow, like 3 years ago, Yogi, I think it was. Yeah, it's about 3 years ago, maybe more than that now.
4 years.
Yeah.
I
It's
lost
more
track of
simplistic.
time,
Yeah.
really.
Some
So
people
we
think
got
that's
together
bad.
and we looked at Star Citizen and went, right, what do we need to do, to make the combat experience good, but also
Versus who? I don't
the
know.
general flight experience good. And we came up with lots of things, and Master Modes was kind of one of the ones that evolved kind of as the prominent feature that we were working on. And it's involved so many teams and so much feedback from all across the studio. So it's been an effort, not just myself and Yogi, but lots of different teams,
Rusty.
and lots of different people, that have worked on this over the time, that have been here. So it's been really good to see it out there. It's been a big push at the last minute because, as Yogi said, we've got so many ships, and every single one of them had to be updated to make this work. So there's a couple of things, that we didn't catch probably, but that was expected given how many records have changed in the game. But we believe it's a much better foundation, and we're excited for the feedback that's coming, as it's coming in, and also for the future as well, because it's going to evolve massively, over the next few releases.
It's going to evolve
And of course, we'll have
massively.
more questions about master modes when we get to the combat section of today's Q&A.
I
Before we jump in,
I think if there's a takeaway from anybody that is a master modes hater or the old flight model enjoyer, it sounds like there'll be some pretty big updates in future releases, and what they do with that, we'll have to see, right? But it just comes down to we have to blindly trust. That's it. You either give up or you blindly trust. Those are the only two options with this, because they're going with it. They are taking your feedback, but they're going with this. But I'll say it's largely been boring. The fights are boring, but because my shots are hitting more often, things are going a little bit slower, I've enjoyed it more. But generally, the fights are really boring. Where the previous flight model, they were crazy intense. So that's the difference for me, like where the positives and negatives are. I don't know the fine details, but I would say these fights are a lot more boring, but I'm able to succeed a bit more, which feels good. And then the other ones were crazy intense, and I wasn't able to keep my composure or whatever, right? So
into it,
there was that.
Torsten, Yogi, and Rich just had their big their big child pushed out in the world. You're up next with engineering in 4.0. How you feeling about your work?
It's far away.
Pretty excited, to be honest. So,
I mean, we've seen such a small piece of it so far.
with all the work that we now are starting to put in, and next week we will reach a big milestone where we will just force everyone to use Resource Network in our game dev branch. So,
oh wow,
will be quite exciting times going forward.
Okay. So, and of course,
in order to force everyone, every ship has to be changed over. Did that happen already?
So we'll have some more questions about engineering later on the show. Let's jump into the backer questions. We've separated the questions into a couple different sections for a couple different gameplay features and stuff. We're going to start with an oldie, refueling. Refueling and rearming. We'll come.
Oh my God, they're finally going to talk about it. And they have Torsten there. This is perfect. I've been wanting to bother him about it, but I know that there's 1,000 other things that he's working on. So I never pestered him when he was in Twitch chat ever about it. But God, can I give a preface to this to new people who have found this channel more recently? Refueling was by far the best UI element that they ever put in the game, one of the best interactions they ever put in the game, one of the most satisfying experiences I've ever had. It's just always been broken.
Combine the two there. This question from the community simply says, how is rearming out in the field supposed to work? If we land our fighter in a Polaris, for instance, how do we restock?
Wait, what? Can we just generally talk about refueling? Because it never works.
So if you run ballistic ammunition, we will allow you to restock the ballistic ammunition. And the way that it will work is you will buy ammunition containers that then you will use to refill the pool of the ships that you either landed, or if you even have like a capital ship or a bigger ship, you will be able to put those boxes with the ammunition inside. Right now, it's a dedicated slot, but it's subject to change, and then it will basically drag the ammunition out of it, and then basically put it to the pool. One change that will come with that is that we will. So this is something that is coming sooner than later, which is we will unify the ammunition size, and that's just for the fact that we don't want to have you bespoke ammunition, for example, for your bearing Gatling, but we want you to share the ammunition between different weapons that share the same size of ammunition. For example, a size 3 Gatling uses the same round size as a size 2 repeater, and it uses the same size as a size 1 repeater, so you can plan your load out accordingly if you just.
How do they use the same size? That seems oversimplified.
Want to buy one type of ammunition for your ship.
And what about?
They're literally different sizes. So far, I don't like.
For things like bigger things like missiles and torpedoes.
Yeah, we already started with that, right? So the tractor beam detach attach was the.
Who cares? Just get it in game. For an initial release, I think it's fine, but for a long term. Re-listen? It's kind of hard in Twitch, but maybe we should because it's pretty.
Gatling, but we want to have you. One change that will come with that is that we will. So this is something that is coming sooner than later, which is we will unify the ammunition size, and that's just for the fact that we don't want to have you bespoke ammunition, for example, for your bearing Gatling.
Is it okay on ships? It just is so weird that the same round will do less damage in one weapon than another. It's just a weird thing. Right? Isn't that just weird?
But we want you to share the.
No, I'm misunderstanding. I don't think I am, bro. You're going to need to explain to me how I'm misunderstanding when they just said they're unifying the ammo.
The ammunition between different weapons that share the same size of ammunition. For example, a size 3 Gatling uses the same round size as a size 2 repeater, and it uses the same size as a size 1 repeater, so you.
A Gatling and a repeater, but they all size 1 and 2 uses the same ammo? Like the bearer helps to find its velocity and power, I think. I'm not a gun guy, so maybe that makes sense.
Can plan your load out accordingly if you just want to buy one type of ammunition for your ship.
I mean, as always, I'll just let them cook, but that's weird.
And what about for things like bigger things like missiles and torpedoes?
Yeah, we already started with that, right? So the tractor beam detach attach was the first step already for that. So the following steps are then having these. I think I don't know if it was ever put out, the images of the. I might be leaking something now, but there's like we had those missile racks, that the mobile missile racks that you could push into vehicles. So these might also see the light of day at some point.
Yeah, no, I don't remember if we've shown those other, but that's been an idea that's been.
I think I saw him in a sneak peek one time, so it may not be a leak.
Around development long enough that we can share that. Basically, the idea of storing missile racks inside your vehicles that you can then, when the ship lands in something like the place, you basically go and reload and stuff like this. There's also, I have no idea if it's out yet or not, but Tyler will have a post on Spectrum later today concerning some of the weapons for the Retaliator and some of the missile counts for the Firebird. So I don't know what the details are specifically, but check that out. There's some improvements coming in a 3.23.1a patch or 2. Again,
Oh,
the specifics
God.
elude me right now, but there's a. But I know that the
He-
Firebird is getting.
Oh, God. No way. Are we not going straight to 323.2? So where's cargo? Oh,
More missiles than it
no.
currently has, and the Retaliator is getting bigger guns, I think. So look out for that. If that hasn't posted on Spectrum yet, it'll post later. And then trust him for the details, not me.
Okay, you know what? Maybe it's not so bad. Maybe it's not so bad. A couple fixes.
Are we likely to see missions for refueling?
Oh,
Yeah, it's something we want to do, but it's not a simple thing to do. There's a lot of like downstream
refueling has to
dependencies that
work.
we have to rely on for it, and there's a lot of edge cases. You know, if we're doing refueling and then you board the ship and kill the AI pilot and you've just got a free ship because you sat there like without any fuel. These are sort of things we need to catch and protect against. We also need like.
Okay, I know I'm on an Eve kick lately. You do not have to protect against that. It is literally the job of the refueler to protect against that. What they do need to do is provide the ability, and here's where the edge case I think is like, are they in monitored space or are they not in monitored space? That'd be a good thing, like when the mission comes up for you to do it. Are they hiding outside of monitored space? Maybe I'm not going to accept this one. You know what I mean? That would be good, right? Give the player the option to know if it's dangerous, like to possibly determine if it's dangerous or not. You know what I mean? Stop putting so many rules in the sandbox. I think it is good to have these laws in the system. I love the ability. A lot of you guys don't know this. I haven't made a video about it, and I really want to. If you pirate somebody and you're in a monitored zone and you're able to, if you pirate someone and you take the box off of their ship, they are able to give you a crime stat. You can't get up to crime stat 3 very easily. I'd love for them to change that. But you get a 2,000 credit fine for every box you interact with. I think it's pretty cool. Also, this is from chat. Message of the day, Friday. We're continuing our work through the remaining blocking issues for 323.2, which currently contain the hangars, cargo updates, and more. Since these changes have huge, widespread effects on how almost every system changes our game, our goal is to go through with an accelerated evocati, wave 1 through 5. We're expecting multiple different, hopefully Wednesday. I mean, that's old, right? That's like a week old. So, yeah.
And a crazy amount of feedback for the player so that that they're like, right, I'm nearly full, or, hey, I need some help, or, maybe we do like, hey, here's the first version, it's just refueling, but then we have refueling, but you get pirated, by some AI pirates. The AI needs to be able to react and communicate with you as the player and sort of like tell you about the situation that's currently happening so you can sort of adapt appropriately. So
the one thing that I don't know, did my camera die? My camera literally died. Okay, 1 second. The one thing that I don't know is what Elliot is in control over. So if Elliot is in control over service beacons, then sure. He needs to, like, I think that's the most important thing. But when they ask about missions are usually dealt with AI pretty exclusively, right? So,
long story short, yes, just probably not yet because we need a few more things.
Yeah, I mean, like, the AI need to be able to do a lot of things that they can't do right now, right? So it'd be super far away.
Okay. What'd you do to Araka? Araka in chat says, please don't let this guy do missions. You got timed out by Knight Rider, but...
Go on, Knight Rider.
You making friends out there, Elliot?
Always. Everyone loves me.
While we're sitting here talking about missions, let's talk about mining missions. So refueling, obviously, something we want to do and
same
stuff.
Answer.
But what about missions related to mining? Wow, the ability to speak. There it is. What about mining missions?
Mining missions, yes. I mean, yeah, we want them, and we're gonna have our first versions of them coming in hopefully soon, in the form of resource gathering. But these are going to be the first iteration, which we kind of call like open resource gathering. And this is the idea that like a mining outpost will go, I want, 1,000 SEU of iron,
Let's
and
go.
then that's all they say, and then you have to go out and collect it, or I want 1,000 SEU of quantanium, and you as a player can go mine it and transport it, or if you could purchase it from another player or a store, you do that.
But everything is sold in the store. Please change the economy before you do this. Please change the economy and make it a resource gathering focused thing. Please.
Or you can pirate people for it and bring it in, because they don't care where you've got it from. They just need that resource.
Less things in the shops.
So that'll be kind of like the idea of the first versions, and then later down the line we might get more specific.
Good question. Refined or raw? That is a good question, because raw is not sold anywhere, right?
With sort of resources that we want, where we're like, we want exactly this, these mining things from this area because we have bought the sort of land claim there for those rocks.
And then there's all that talk about, we've talked before about how the mission system could potentially plug into like quantum and stuff, and when a resource is needed, for a particular station or something, it could generate a mission, for that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is it's static because we have to pre-set up all of the data, but the idea is that it's all there. So when the sort of quanta star sim, whatever it's called, system comes and hooks in, it'll just take over and start generating these on its own and balancing these based on like the needs of the universe, and it will react to what players are doing.
And
if that's any indication that Tony Z is gone, I know that's reading a lot into that, but the name changing probably means he's gone.
That's not to say that missions are the only way. Like when these missions come online and stuff, and as there are more salvage missions and more mining missions, that's not the only way to make a living with those professions. That's just those are introductory things to draw people to the profession for the first time that maybe they hadn't considered before, and to supplement a little more directed initiatives to just the open sandbox stuff that you'll always be able to do.
Yeah, it's something that me and Thorsten have talked about a few times when it came to when Thorsten first released salvaging, hull scraping. The gameplay came out, and then the missions were a way to help expose it to new people so they could see the gameplay and find the things a bit quicker. So it's a nice way to sort of show you to the world, and then let the systemic nature of the universe and let the actual cost of doing it yourself without a mission come into play when you get more advanced at it.
I'm going to do one more mission question since we just...
It's a weird way of him saying it, because the missions cost, and the way to do it without the missions doesn't cost you anything.
Having to be on here.
When it comes to salvage.
Are there plans for more robust missions that cross disciplines? For instance, in here it says it starts off as a mining job, then turns into a repair job, so that you can then do a salvage job, and then transport this, whatever, yada, yada, yada.
That's pretty wild.
I guess the Overdrive was the first kind of beginnings of that multidiscipline kind of stuff.
Yeah, we definitely want multidiscipline things. What we're doing is we're building, because obviously, as I might have mentioned a few times, I build missions modularly. So we build a load of base sort of modules. So with our resource gathering and our salvage things, the idea is that when we get enough of them, we'll start stitching bits of them together. So you might have a mission where you've got to take out a bounty, and then you've got to hull scrape him, and then maybe you've got to steal his component. Then you've got to, like, someone wants that component, so you get
I don't like this young kid as a dev on this game. Give me more old nerds. Yeah, he's 75. I don't know what you're talking about. But that is the most ridiculous comment ever, too. So do you know what kind of devs you want? You want passionate ones. And what I see from the 4 developers that are on the show, and a few others that have been on the shows before, we have not had a lot of passionate devs from my perspective in a while, or that passion was maybe on Squadron 42 or something like that, right? But these guys that are on the show have consistently been passionate about their work and are some of the only reasons that we have anything enjoyable in the PU right now. So I'm going to take your statement and say I gracefully disagree.
Objective, like deliver that component to this person. And we plan to have missions that take you through multiple bits of gameplay, but all in one mission. But right now, our focus is creating the baseline of all sort of generic type missions that we can think of. So the idea with that is that
I'm not going to ban somebody for being ignorant, but like I'm not going to go out and be like, oh my God, they're ageist, and oh, let's cancel them on Twitter. Like that's stupid. That's Twitter behavior. We're not going to have that here. It's teach them to understand that it doesn't really work that way. And I kind of get his perspective. He wants an old nerd because he probably wants an old school MMO experience. And these guys have never played that stuff, so they might not get it. You know what I mean? So sure, part of me wants some of those old nerds that remember that MMO that I played. And guess what? Some of the developers that made that old school MMO, Chris Roberts being one of them, literally work at the company. The only thing is that they're all in like these high up management positions. So like one of them was John Erskine, who like runs the entire Austin studio. Does he have any say in what gets made when? Maybe, probably not as much. He's probably doing the day-to-day admin shit. You know what I mean? CR, who knows what he's doing? We know he like codes and does stuff, but maybe he's more squadron focused. It's hard to say right now. We'll probably find out more at CitizenCon. But these guys are the guys in the trenches doing all the tough stuff. And who gives a shit what age they are? Just, I give a shit if they're busting their ass, and every single person on camera today has and will continue probably.
If we build them, they can then scale out to all the systems that we have planned, and it's easier to get a wide spread of content before we start building into our bespoke sort of things.
Okay. And while we're still talking profession stuff, Torsten, maybe. Any thoughts about making power plants burn fuel? With abandoned ships keeping their shields forever, this would be a nice way to address that for salvaging and the like.
Yes, power plants will consume fuel in the future. So it's not...
okay.
So it has been a plan for quite some time already, and we are now looking into when is the perfect time actually to release it. It's not with 4.0, so it's not with the initial release of the resource network, but it will come at a later point then.
Okay.
And the goal there is then that the power plants will consume hydrogen fuel, so it's used for the thrusters and the power plants. And the reason is because power generators right now create energy out of thin air, and especially when we go forward to base building, we can't do that anymore. So we need a resource that is actually
from a game standpoint, this makes sense. From a futuristic power standpoint, it probably doesn't, but
consumed.
I mean, hydrogen is thin air. That's a good point.
And the benefit is then in that scenario that is described in that question is once your fuel runs out, once your battery is depleted, all the systems on that ship will then slowly die, and you will be able to enter that ship without any shields anymore.
Ships literally have speed limits. Fair.
Life support.
Yeah.
Nice.
If it's fun, put it in. That's what I think.
Let's move on to combat. We have quite a few combat-related questions here. I'll just start off with the big one. In addition to the opening, we'll often take a bunch of questions and just combine them and stuff. This was really about 7 different questions I'm going to combine into one here. Is balance possible? Like you mentioned 140 ship records for master modes. Is this a pipe dream? Is balance actually an attainable thing?
There will always be a meta.
It's not a pipe dream at all. So yes, we had 140 records, and we did a very quick weapon tuning pass and a little bit of a health pass for some components and ships. But we're also getting a huge amount of data from the players actually playing that stuff. Internally, when we develop stuff, it's sometimes hard to judge whether or not we.
Bro, what data? Listen, I love Yogi. What fucking data are you getting when 95% of the ships in Arena Commander are F7A Mark IIs? There's like 2 other ships. There's your data.
We reach the right balance because we have a vast array of ships and items and all that. But when you watch player playing it, then you get an idea what's happening. That said, as I said, like the current pass that we have on the balance should not be treated as this is now the final product thing.
Of course
it's
not.
really just a stepping stone because it just sets a little bit the stage for the vastly bigger changes that are coming to in terms of like to 4.0 and beyond. Because there will be new gameplay loops and so on.
I think a huge step we took right now is actually that we set our intentions very straight, right? So we know exactly what we want to achieve, and now we actually look for the data sets inside, like what players are actually experiencing right now, and we use these observations to improve the balance even more.
What you got, Rich?
Yeah, on the overall question, is balance even possible? Do we want balance? As in, do we want everything to be balanced? Because the kind of nature of balance is the imbalance. That makes sense for me.
It makes sense.
Because we've got to capture all the unique characteristics of the ships, and that throws them off in all different different kind of directions. And we've got to capture that balance to make sure that within the game context, the ship fits within the game. But every ship needs to feel different and offer different things and have different character to them. So that's kind of the complex nature of balance. And then we have to balance the game with the other features that affect flight. So basically, as Jürgen said, this is the starting point of the rebalance of the game. But then, with 4.0, it's going to evolve massively. With the engineering gameplay, it's going to have a significant impact on how the ships are in the game.
Dude, how is it going to be with these light
fighters? We're going to kind of reset again there, and then we're going to look at the data to see if we're delivering the gameplay we intend. So it's a juggling act, and it doesn't really ever end with a game like Star Citizen because the game, it's a live product. It's out there, it's evolving. We're adding.
It doesn't ever end because you can't balance. There's no such thing. So there's always going to be a meta that you're fighting against, and they should just say it. It's just the truth. They're always going to be fighting against the meta. It's always going to be what happens, and that's the end of it.
We're changing things all the time.
He's saying that.
So, from my side, the balance is, it's not something that will ever be finished. It's an evolving thing. It's a living, breathing thing that's exists in the game currently.
That's literally what he's saying. I know.
And we'll carry on to evolve.
Which is true for any MMO, any online game, right?
Yeah.
We were talking. I can't.
Just
I won't
be
begin to try to pronounce his name. The main guy in charge of Smash had an interview this week or last week where he said he talked about their internal numbers about how the most successful fighter in all of Smash Brothers had like a 51% win rate, and the least successful fighter had a 46% win rate. So it was really only about a 5% difference there. And Thorsten, you mentioned that he had a YouTube channel where he talks about design and stuff.
Yeah, it's basically he talked about like if you have a fully balanced game, it's basically everything is average, and average is boring generally. So you always tend to if you do balancing, there's always a peak up or a peak down. So it's more interesting for players.
Yeah.
Worth watching, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think our peaks are unfortunately Mount Everest. That's our problem, right? I agree with everything they're saying. Perfect balance is boring. So if I'm flying a vulture, but I'm able to kill an F8 because we're perfectly balanced, that's horrible. That's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. But if one fighter is chosen by everybody, and the style of fighting is to avoid them at all costs unless they're about to die, or everybody fire at that one all at one time and get rid of them as quickly as possible, we're doing something wrong, and we are wildly imbalanced. And that's where we are right now. We are wildly imbalanced with the F7 Mark II. It's horrible. It is what it is. Was anybody expecting this to run smoothly with how much work they had to do? Hopefully not. Anybody who did is pretty stupid, in my opinion. And hopefully they fix it, right?
It was like the best characters were 51, the worst characters were 45. Elliot Maltby was like 38.
Swear to God, you can't even pronounce his name. Come on. This guy built my childhood.
But yeah, so I think the moral of that story is Elliot is bad, and balance is an ongoing thing that never ends, but you never want to make it too homogenous. There will always be some level of intentional imbalance because, like life, that's what makes it.
Or unintentional, as long as it's not too big. And we have giant peaks and giant valleys.
We couldn't talk much about the Bounty Hunting V2 thing, but a lot of that's ship related has to do with non-lethal damage. So let's talk about non-lethal damage. Can you give us an update on things like EMP, distortion, and overall ship disabling? Anything involved in not destroying another ship?
Love to hear it. Who's taking this one, Torsten or Yogi?
Take that because that's highly related to resource network. So
I thought you wanted to talk about like EMP and stuff, but okay.
No, I mean it's like it's similar. So the big question, the big picture hasn't really changed, but there will be some specific details with like software that Torsten will talk about in 2 seconds. Now.
Yeah, so we still keep all the weapon counters, that is distortion, that is EMP and stuff like that, where you can deactivate a ship. But like for EMP, you first have to bring the shield down, so there's some work that comes with it in front. For distortion, we already mentioned it. I think it's on the roadmap now with a multi-tool that you will be able to counter distortion. So that's
super
something
cool.
that we were missing before, that distortion damage has actually a valid counter. So you are not only a sitting duck when you get fully distorted by someone else. You will be able to drain that, so you will be able to make your ship work again. But I think the biggest change that will come with 4.0 is the change to soft death. I don't know if all of you already played the Arena Commander experimental mode, but that already gives a hint at what we are aiming for. So right now, also in 3.23 live.
Okay, so if anybody has played the engineering mode, ships do not explode in the engineering mode. 0 explosions in any time I've ever played it post when you exploded way too often. It is really good. I need to jump back in the mode. I haven't played it in a while, but we essentially disabled a A2 on a atmosphere map, very high up in the air. When it hit the ground, it did not explode. It didn't soft death, nothing. It hit the ground. It was still disabled. Ships are strong. Cool. Then it was boarding, and it was fine. Dumb. The current experience is dumb. I don't have the time to argue with you about that one, but I think saying that is dumb. I played it. It's significantly more fun, and that's it. You probably haven't played it, and you're just sitting here calling it dumb. I think disabling is way better than ships exploding. It opens up 10 times more avenues for gameplay, whether it's boarding or other things, right? Super, super good. The one thing that it doesn't have is Maelstrom. So, like, wings didn't break off or anything like that when the ship crashed, right? So, yeah. Falling 10 kilometers to the ground should kill any ship? Okay. Or the game should be fun.
So 3.23.1 live. If you shoot a ship, if the ship reaches health 0, it will explode or it will go into the soft state. Yeah, we are right now actively discussing how we want to change that. So we have already some ideas. One of the big ideas is tied actually to the health or the life of the power plant, and give also players a way to maybe fix or escape the soft death scenario there.
The only thing is that the current experience of the health of components is are incredibly low. You could kill a power plant in 3 seconds
But this is, as said, still an active discussion. But the goal is to have it come with everything resource network related for 4.0.
And of course, we talked about this in ISC, but the experimental modes for this season in Arena Commander have to do with tuning time to kill and stuff on a lot of these ships.
Yeah, and it has a lot of a way to go. It's got a lot of ways to
go. Yes. Yeah, it's a huge effort right now that we are going through, which is like, I don't know if we had heavy iterations time, especially in the beginning of the 3.
So apparently the post is, you guys can link the post. I'll bring it up here. Apparently the Firebird is now getting 24 rockets and 40% signature reduction. I guess it wasn't selling very well. That's what it sounds like to me.
23 cycle where we had it wrong, had it even more wrong. And then at some point we were heading into a direction we were seeing suddenly the time to kill times being in the ballpark area of where we want to see them. We are still not fully there yet. So
no, they're not. In my opinion, they're not even close to there. They're pretty far away. It can happen very quickly, especially A2 versus A2. Here we go. Fire missile count is doubled. Signature is reduced from 20 to 40. All retaliator turrets have been upgraded to size 3 laser repeaters. All retaliator turrets have had dead zone issues fixed. Okay. Yeah, I really don't think this sold as much as they wanted it to. That's the vibe they're giving there with that one, but sure. That's funny.
We are still improving it, especially...
It is true the Shrike has way more missiles, so hey, whatever.
Like, it gets really complicated because some ships are... In some ships, it's easier to destroy crucial components versus others, but we are working on a solution for that.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
I have a lot of faith that Torsten's going to get this right, because they, like you said, they went in all sorts of directions. It didn't go well initially, and they started to find that right direction, and they built upon that. They're still building upon it. So this is going to take time, but it's so far been really, really fun.
Somebody in chat,
really fun.
Suburbanite 1001 says, I've lost all excitement for this game just about a decade ago. But he's still here.
It's a different game.
Thanks for hanging in there, Suburbanite. Just... Listen, more. Okay, so here's a question, Elliot. Would you please make a clear distinction between vehicle-based combat missions and FPS ones? Is that something we even want to do? Do we want to mix them up? They're asking for it.
No, I won't. No, I'm joking. We're gonna add in the future when we redo the contract manager app. We're gonna add a sort of section where you can see the sort of gameplay you're going to encounter. So it'd say things like, maybe you need a multi-tool. Maybe you're going to come up against, maybe you're going to need like FPS weapons. Maybe you're going to need
it again?
Like a powerful ship.
There'll be like
a section where you can see what it is. And the reason that we don't currently make a distinction between the two is because the idea is that in the future, like your bounty that you're hunting might be ported above like a bunker, but then he might land and go inside, and then you've got to infiltrate and fight them. There's a whole bunch of different things that we want to happen. So therefore we don't want to make a clear distinction when there might be why there might be none. You might get there, start attacking them, and then they get in their ship and take off, and you've got to transition from ground to space-based combat. There's
too clear
potential for change.
We don't want to make too clear a distinction.
Exactly.
I like what you're saying.
It's like
we could give you expectations. The mission giver expects it to be primarily this or primarily that, but I think it's important to leave room for the element of surprise, not just from the story of your mission team and the narrative and stuff, but the surprises of the other backers, the other players in the verse.
Exactly. It takes like influence from real life. You take a job and they're like, hey, this is what you're applying for. You're only going to do this. And 90% of the time you start and you're like, they give you so much other shit to do at the same time. So
no, I think that's good. I think that's a reasonable expectation, and I think it'll help people a lot. We expect it to be primarily
speaking from
this,
experience,
but the verse is the verse.
And no hand holding.
No hand holding.
No hand holding.
Why nerf a call to arms payout when it was already so meager? Which mission is call to arms? What am I?
It's internally it's called Sandbox Criminal Kills. It's the one that just gives you money for killing people with crime stats.
Right. Okay.
Players seem to always just want money. So I know, right? We are reactive.
There's nothing else.
We try to be reactive with missions. So we look at them and we see if they're earning too much and they're earning way too much than we like. We take it back a bit. But now we have the economy team. They're actually helping with this. So they've actually rebalanced this again. So hopefully for the next patch, you'll see a change in the call to arms payment, because before call to arms was literally balanced by the mission team. And balancing UEC for our economy, obviously the reason we have a dedicated team is because it's so big. Like a funny example, kind of funny, one of the big reasons that we had to wipe UEC is because of
I don't know,
my team, and I'll take sole blame because I submitted it. I accidentally managed to make it so that people had earned 4 billion UEC just from salvage missions, and the economy team, when they found out, wasn't very happy with me, but that's because numbers are absolutely insanity to try and balance. So
Fierce Leap and several people in chat are like, did you just ask what is call to arms? Yeah, sometimes when I'm on live internet and there's a bunch of lights and constantly running 5 different calculations on how not to say the wrong thing because people will take it to Reddit, sometimes I say the wrong thing and I forget what a thing is called. It happens. Thanks for worrying about me, though. All right, Yogi.
Said the wrong thing at the beginning. I tell
you
you
knew
that
this was
much.
coming. How's Master Modes going, and what happens next? Will there be changes?
Oh, changes, yes, of course. I mean, the how is it doing right now? It's better than what we had in live on 3.2 before.
Yeah.
In terms of like how successful the change was so far, I think it's pretty positive. I can't exactly say exact numbers, but the relationships of kill-death ratios on all ships, for example, they have flattened out a lot of the times in the past.
Except
we always
for
had
one
one or two
ship.
ships which basically were responsible for most of the kills in the game, and that's not the case anymore. We also have more players with, let's say, more diverse levels of flying and combat skills enjoying the game more. So I would count that as...
That's 100% true. Guys, 3.2.2 and earlier, you go into Arena Commander, you see the same 10 names every single time. They're all super sweaty, and the moment they see somebody new, they all beeline it to you so they get the kill. It is awful. Here, in the current one, I don't know anybody's name. Some of them are really good, some of them are really bad, and it's like, and everywhere in between. And it's like, I feel like I'm playing a game. It was, and not just getting punched in the face sim.
As a win,
great.
But there is a huge amount of stuff that is on our list to do. There's like typical examples like ESP needs to be improved. The 1v1 dogfighting needs to be improved. There's also a couple of things we want to try out with the flight model, like using an egg-shaped velocity space to combat the backstrafing problem, whether that works or not.
God, this dude's been repeating himself for 2 months of what he wants to do, and the communities can't be patient enough.
We'll see. There's in general, we want to improve the combat distances a bit. There will be more stuff happening with the 4.0 tuning patch concerning weapon speeds that also might help with the distances. And there's a couple of bugs like the camera shaking sometimes is inconsistent. The G4 zoom effects are sometimes inconsistent. And of course, there are like a couple of ships that feel out of whack. One of the Hornets can at the moment pull 35 Gs upwards. That is, of course, not intended.
Yeah, it's so broken.
Yeah, there's lots of stuff.
That's the one I'm talking about. That's
the
one everybody's flying.
Overall, I'm pretty happy with the current progress. Is it the final state? Of course not. But there will be more stuff happening, especially with the resource network that will come towards, because of course these new feature sets also require some changes in the flight model or the way we target certain parts of the ships.
Okay, so the one thing they're not telling you, if you guys haven't played the engineering mode, they are doing some weird shit that is going to seem really weird to you when you get it in 4.0, I think. Weird shit. Like, I don't know what ballistics do anymore. Okay? So, like, lasers take down shields, ballistics kind of go through them and hit the hull, but the last patch notes I read around engineering was like, lasers damage the hull of the ship. Like it's they're kind of flipping things up on their head as far as what lasers do and what hull is. Like, yeah, like lasers strip hull. What strips shields? Right? It's weird. Like, what do ballistics do? I'm not sure. So it's kind of a weird thing because we don't have armor yet. Maybe it'll make sense for armor at some point. So they're doing some stuff that you're going to look at this and just go, wow, this is really different. I don't like this, most likely, you know, and it's just something you might have to get used to kind of thing. But I don't know, man. When I think sci-fi, I think shields should just stay up for a really long time. And once the shields are down, you're kind of fucked. But
how about you, Rich?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's I think
I don't know if that's good gameplay or not.
Yogi's comments that, you know, we're personally really happy with how it's gone. It's definitely
shields go down like this, and
there's definitely going to be more changes.
I don't like that.
A big challenge for Masterwords for us in terms of release was just how much around Masterwords changed. So it wasn't just adding Masterwords to the game. This was fundamentally, you know, making some big changes to the aiming system and the, you know, kind of fight model itself as well. So we had a lot of changes going in that way.
Eve has armor builds and shield builds. I'd love to see that in our game. We don't have armor yet. Maybe one day. And then somebody just explained it in chat really well. First time chatter, Giga Chat on this one. Lasers melt armor, ballistics ignore shields, and then they're balanced in some sort of way to be similar, I guess.
When
in
just
terms
faster
of damage,
modes, this was quite hard to manage. But that's part of the fun. That's part of the fun in games working on this is, you know, we're always trying to improve things, always trying to change things for the better. And, you know, we're going to carry on listening to the feedback from the players, you know, and also looking at the data as well, you know, because that's a big part for us is we need to back up what, you know, we basically need to be accountable for what we're doing. So, you know, any changes we make, we've got to be able to prove them that they're actually having the impact in the game that, you know, that we intended.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a big part of moving forward with general balance. But yeah, there's going to be lots more.
And I think they are proving that impact with the Master Mode change. A lot more people are playing it and enjoying it, myself included.
Yeah, there's going to be lots more changes. We're going to fix up some of the shit.
The only people that aren't enjoying it are the sweaty PvPers, from my understanding. And that has to change. Like, they have to get it to a place where the ceiling is where they want it to be and happy and fun for them too. But man, is it not better that way more people are enjoying the game? And from that standpoint, I think it's awesome.
Ships, because we definitely missed some of the ships, you know, for various reasons. You know, we changed a lot of ships, and there's some ships that inherit certain records from the ships. Sometimes that can catch us out a little bit. But, you know, we're basically working on identifying those ships, which we are in the process of doing, and we'll fix those up. And then we'll move towards 4.0 as well, where we basically expect, you know, another round of big changes to the balance as well.
So like any other feature, I mean, obviously since the PU first opened up in 2.0 back in December 2015, we're now in 2024. Obviously, there's not a single thing that's gone in that hasn't changed, that hasn't evolved, that hasn't continued to iterate since its first release. Master Modes is no different. It will continue to evolve, it'll continue to iterate, they'll continue to look at your feedback and process your feedback and apply where they think it's necessary and relevant and proper. And of course, fixing all the bugs and stuff like that. Speaking of bugs, chat has been asking about the dupe bug. Yes, the dupe bug is super duper annoying. All I can tell you right now, because I'm sitting here live doing a show and I'm not plugged into everything else at the moment, is that we have a fix internally. It's working on internal builds, and that fix will go out in a point patch. I don't know.
Okay, where were you when we told you about the bug in the PTU? Oh yeah, Invictus has to
if
go
it'll
out.
be 0.3 or it'll be a 0.2B or whatever. Like they're still working that out.
Bro, what points is this dude saying? There's a 1A, a 2, and he just said 3. 4 point. We're getting 2 patches this year. We're getting 2 patches, and that's okay because I think .2 is like a real patch in itself because it's pretty game changing in terms of cargo and stuff. I would call that 324. I think that they're afraid to say 324 because they want to say 4.0 is the next patch from a marketing standpoint. They're now pulling our fucking chain, is what it sounds like to me. I don't think I'm reading too much into this. He isn't dialed into everything, but he's dialed into enough to know that 323 is going to have multiple patches. It's okay. I don't see anything wrong with it, but why are they playing little games? These little sneaky things that they do are really frustrating because this is what makes them look like a joke. That's why people think you're a joke. Is little things like that, right? Just be honest with people.
How that's going to be distributed.
It's just like it's like a net that won't go away. It's like these little choices they make to sneakily hold you on the line and stuff like that.
It's working internally, and it will go out as soon as everything aligns to allow it to work out. As far as anything else around that, I know there's a bunch of subsequent questions. I don't have the answers for those ones, so hang tight. It's coming. Looking at these questions here. Racing.
That's all you need to say.
Does racing have any future? That's what the question.
It's weird. It's my understanding that ships are doing better times in racing. Gravlev is not good. Gravlev's a joke. I sent as much detail as I could on Gravlev to try to at least bring it back to where it was. I really enjoyed it. I do not enjoy it anymore at all, to the point where I don't want to play it. I literally have a race tomorrow for like a community run race tomorrow with Antia Racing. I haven't even practiced. I don't want to go. I don't want to do it because I find it so boring and slow and shitty right now. So hopefully it gets resolved.
Yes.
I'm gonna go, but
of course.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
Of course it has a future. Well, sure. There's
we gotta sound more confident, guys. Come on.
No,
yeah,
okay,
racing's
fine.
got a
Yes.
future.
Racing.
Wow.
Racing has a future. But really, it's about. Like the Master Mode tuning patch. Of course, affected the current racing tracks that there are, right? Like the speeds got a lot slower and so on. And so some of the tracks we have right now, they might not work as they do now. But the level design team, for example, they also asked, hey, should we adapt the racing tracks now? And we were like, we're not completely done with our Master Mode changes with flight model development. So maybe hold off for like doing extensive changes for a while. But racing, we sell racing ships. So of course we invested into racing. Actually, one of the specifically for the racing from the racing community, we added something to the flight model back then that was addressing the lack of certain acceleration when you're not using digital input devices and so on, right? So yes, racing is important, and we're not. Oh Jesus, what the hell? So racing is really important to us. And actually, today I got a question from Knebel, who was one of the German podcasters, YouTube streamers. Actually, don't know. He asked if we could add smoke pods to racing ships. I have not discussed it with anyone, but I think the idea is really, really great. Just putting this out there.
That's
Rich,
my partner.
Say more about racing
in the Master Modes tournament.
Definitely got a future, because I come from a racing background. I've done a lot of sim racing, and I'm a big fan of racing in real life. So, and that's the key thing with Master Modes is it's allowing us. It's going to allow us in the future.
For anyone who doesn't understand, he wants Mario Kart. He wants racing to become Mario Kart.
To kind of give more freedom to allow the racing variants to excel at racing. And that's something we're really keen for. Because one of the issues we've had in the past is it's balancing the combat experience with the flight experience and the racing experience. And if you have a really good racing ship that can use all its guns at the same time and everything, it can suddenly be the dominant force in combat, which is probably not intentional. So we're looking at ways where we can...
Which, just disable the guns. racing ships are really good in nav mode, but then you made a change to nav mode where we can switch between them instantly. Not good. So maybe racing ships can't. Maybe racing ships move really slowly from nav mode to SCM mode, and maybe racing ships can move really quickly from SCM mode to nav mode or something. Right?
Can balance that, so we can have racing ships be like the best handling ships or the fastest in a straight line. And then basically, as Yogi said, it's about the tracks as well. Because the tracks are where you're racing, so it's important. It's important that they're designed around the current flight model. And as we've made a lot of changes, we need to now take a step back and look at what tracks are going to make the most out.
That's also a really good point too. Why do racing ships have quantum drives? Don't they want to be lighter? I know they want to. There is a race in the verse that does transcend single locations where you do quantum. It's in the lore of the game, and that type of race should exist. But all racing ships, I think some of them can go without a quantum drive. An M50, a Razor, the Omega, right? Those kind of things, I think would make sense. And no guns. There are also races with weapons in them. So they've again, this is a part of selling the game to players before they actually made it. Mistakes. So the lore, the things they sold players on, unfortunately make their jobs a lot harder. And I think that's a situation with guns on racing ships.
The handling that we now have in the game.
Gotcha. Starbucksy in chat says, Jared, is this live? Unfortunately.
I'm big into racing.
I think it's always good to remind people racing is super important. There's a lot of folks here. I know, Rich, you had a question whether you could even make this show because you were going to head off to a race this weekend and stuff, and you didn't know if you could be here and stuff. I mean, so many people on the vehicle team and just development in general are so big into racing and stuff. I think it's very close to a lot of our hearts. Just to sum back up. There's we got to figure out the master.
F1 is so big right now, right? F1 is so big right now, and F1, yeah, Lando, man, like F1 ships, F1 vehicles. When you turn, they turn. Ships in Star Citizen don't do that.
Master mode stuff before we spend a whole lot of time doing it, but I would not bet on. I don't know what was I trying to say. I would just bet that there's enough people here who like racing and enjoy racing and love racing that it's time in the development sun, when the development Eye of Sauron, will return to it, that it'll get a lot of love and attention. I still
agree.
Personally, just speaking for myself, and
I know what he's going to say.
You might know where I'm going with this. I still hope for a racing master mode personally.
Oh.
Well, I think the easiest. I wouldn't go for racing master mode because. Racing, if you want to go quickly from A to B, this is what navigation mode is for, right? But we should absolutely do something like a racing operator mode where the head-up display clears with racing specific information. We actually have a stopwatch on the HUD. I'm not sure if players know about this, but this is, for example, something that we should then just have on by default, or having a bigger, I don't know, like a bigger TVI and giving you.
When you're in racing mode, operator mode, or whatever. You have no weapons. You have no XYZ. Your maneuvering thrusters are boosted to craziness. Your shields go down. Something like that, right?
Expect the deceleration times directly into view and stuff like that. That's stuff that's important for the racing experience itself.
Well, that's why I'm not a designer and a programmer.
There's
what I like.
On the mission side for racing. Also, real quick, I'd like to point out Rich is being incredibly modest. Rich, aren't you like a champion iRacer? Like
it was a long time ago. I can't remember anymore.
There you go. Yeah, champion iRacer. So there you go. For missions,
Yeah, he was
we're in the PU.
really good. Now he
it can be
does
a bit
racing
difficult to do
photography.
racing missions compared to AC because
Twitter's
we have
pretty cool.
the respawn flow set out for us, so it can take you quite a long time to get back to the racetrack where you want to do your races. So we're investigating ways we can speed that up. I don't want to speak to any specifics because they might change. One thing we are doing is we're going to be adding open track versions of the current racing missions that we have. Because currently how you unlock the next racetrack is via completing the first one. So what we're going to do is just give out you don't get a reward, you don't pay a buy-in, here's access to the track. We'll time you like we do in the mission as it is, but it's just so you can keep practicing. And then going forward,
cool.
We'll have more advanced races, but races aren't just in ships, they're in ground vehicles. We have the Daymar Rally that the community do, and that's a lot of fun, but they can also extend to on foot races. And recently we prototyped a race, time trial race in the escape route of the prison, where we time players who could get out the fastest and then award them like merits for whoever got out the fastest.
That's awesome.
That is pretty funny.
We didn't feel like it fully fit, so we've just kind of like, we can do it, and maybe in the future you'll see it somewhere in the game. Event. But yeah, it was a lot of fun because we tried to be sort of suggestive with the direction. So if you didn't know the escape route, you could really mess your time up.
I do. Well, you mentioned the Daymar Rally. I think that's as good a transition as any to one of Rich's
that's a good experimental
topics, ground vehicles. Yep. You ready, Rich?
Always. I love ground vehicles.
Why do the tanks suck?
Well, unfortunately, this is one of the problems with changing so much, is we got caught out by a change on the back end of the game, and this had a negative impact on the tank handling, and we just couldn't quite get it fixed in time for the release. It was quite a complicated problem. It was quite an interesting problem as well. I'm not going to go too much into.
I think what he's saying here too, and I think we as backers need to listen to what he just said, because I think this applies to every situation in the game. Is like, we got caught out by some change and we didn't have enough time to fix it. I think we as backers have to understand that Invictus and IAE time is a thing. So getting mad at them for not finishing something in time, it's not really on them. That's on the marketing side of things, and we have to do these sales occasionally because that's the way they fund the game. I don't like it. I'm sure you don't like it, but it is what it is. But I think this happens a lot, and to think something like the Hornet is on purpose is insane, even though it happens every fucking time they sell a ship. But I think this is like a thing that happens, right? Like, we never question when things get really bad. We only point out when things get overly good, right? When things get really bad, you just put them down and don't use them. When things get overly good is when you notice it the most. And I think we need to chill a little bit sometimes. Myself included. I'm more putting that out there for myself
fixed,
than
and the
you.
tank is now tank. Well, both tanks are driving like tanks again, which is really good.
The tanks are fixed internally, not publicly.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, we've discovered the error, we fixed it. It's gone into our builds, and that'll make its way out there.
All right. So what's with all the other wheeled vehicles that are sliding and sometimes bouncing around all the time? My poor gameplay guys were trying to film the Ursa Medevac for ISC, and they're like, is it supposed to have like hydraulic bounce?
Yeah, unfortunately, that was another change that wasn't really caught in time to fix, but it has, it's also been fixed. So, so basically, the vehicle you saw as a player was actually the server vehicle and not the actual player vehicle of the player physics. So it caused a lot of glitching. There's two vehicles? But we've corrected that, and the ground vehicles are now back to being fairly stable ground vehicles. It is fair to say, we're still looking at improving the general ground vehicle experience to make it as good as the ships, because it should be. They're all vehicles in the game, and all vehicles should be up to the same standard. So we still, we're definitely looking at improving the ground vehicle experience still. But we're pretty happy with the kind of major physics overhaul that went through with it. We just need to make it a little bit more game friendly. for our environments, which are massive planets with loads of different terrains.
I get you. Loading in chat says, Jared, I beg you, do you have any plans for the cluttered UI problem? These aren't the UI guys, Loading, but yes. We was witnessing a big chat with Simon and Bone and CR just yesterday in our big creative and technical directors chat and stuff. We're aware. It's been a forever thing. So I have no information to give you. That was just them talking about potential solutions yesterday. So I don't know where they're going with it. But yes, but these aren't the guys. And I just what happened to GravLibs recently? This question says that they've fallen into a bad state that they had previously before their last rework, where sometimes they just decide to stop hovering, fall down, and explode.
This one, we're not quite sure. It's actually we got reports about this like midweek, and we've started to do our own investigations across different teams to figure out what's going on, because we've changed some of the stuff in the handling, but the backend technology hasn't changed. But again, with a game like
they fucked the handling, by the way, completely.
As in the fundamental game engine is updating all the time, and there can be kind of negative consequences on completely different features because it might use a piece of some of the game part which works a certain way, which now works a different way.
Yeah, DJ told me he talked to them.
So it's about figuring out where it's gone wrong, because we're definitely not happy with the overall kind of GravLib experience, and we're definitely looking at improving it. Because that's another key part of racing as well. Because the GravLib racing can actually be really cool. When it works really well, it's probably one of the cooler race experiences in the game. So we're definitely looking at what's gone wrong in 3.23 for GravLib.
Yeah, the chat's talking about how basically sometimes it flips over and you hit your head on the ground and falls down and stuff. So it's
I haven't had that experience.
Like I said, we're looking into
General
it. It could be everything from a networking issue
feels
to
like shit.
Anything else.
Acceleration greatly reduced.
I imagine.
It's just unfun.
I imagine when we find something more, we'll communicate it. That said, I like this next question. Star Citizen is a lot of things. It's PvP, it's PvE, it's FPS, it's spaceships, it's stuff like that. It's sandbox. Nothing. It's chain missions and stuff coming, stuff like this. Ground vehicles can sometimes seem like an afterthought, or just like an also ran. So this question simply says, what are you doing to encourage ground vehicle usage? Are there any specific new mission types for this? Maybe
they've done a lot. Actually,
so there's been lots of discussions about ground vehicles in our game and how we use them on the mission side.
If you are not using an Ursa Medevac or the Nursa at Jumptown, you might be dumb. They have made those changes to signature are really meaningful, big time.
The main
Tomato, thank you for the raid.
Is that when we balance a mission and balance the economy, time is a huge factor in it. And if you can do it in a ground vehicle, you can do it in a ship a hell of a lot faster. So it becomes this thing where we try to make an experience around ground vehicles, but then people just do it quicker in a ship.
Yeah.
So then we have to lower the price to not break the economy, and then people.
Well, yeah, no one's going to do JT because it's not good anymore. But yeah, for money making,
we want to add a benefit. We want to add a reason for people to actually use ground vehicles. Recently, like in the distribution centers, there's those massive like gas spheres, and the ground turrets will shoot at spaceships, but they won't shoot at ground vehicles. So we've seen some players using the tonks to destroy them, so that they don't have as much resistance. But we also we need some tools or features that help us encourage it. A recent thing that we was investigating for ground vehicles was to do with the copions that got added to the game. We was having a debate about how we discover them, how the player discovers them. And one of the sort of discussions that we came upon was that maybe the ground vehicle radar would be the only thing that could find these copions, so that if you wanted to do the mission, you'd have to land, take your ground vehicle out and use that to try and locate the copions.
I don't like that.
We wasn't really happy with that, so we've kind of thrown it out. But yeah, we're always looking for new ways. and how we can encourage it. And me and Thorsten have
Don't
been talking
force
about
me.
ways that we could do it. So I'll hand over to
Encourage
Thorsten, 'cause
me.
I'm sure he's
I
got some.
actually wanted to say, like, yeah, there are some things that we already started discussing, and that is, I think, one of the most important parts is that environment matter, right? So depending on what environment the mission takes place in, it might be worth bringing your ship or your ground vehicle, or even going by foot. So, for example,
God damn it, Elliot.
we already have the case where you have to enter a cave and you cannot fly
I'm
in.
agreeing
We have
with
some
you.
where you can fly in. We have some where a ground vehicle also fits in. But in general, if you have a cave mission, the way to go into that cave is by foot. But we want to expand on that in the future, and we don't only want
Just make roads. I can fly over roads.
to expand on that by how the environment looks. So, for example, a vast forest, you cannot land with your ship, but you can drive into it with your ground vehicle. But we also want to utilize the weather conditions, for example, right? So a strong wind, for example, will
Elliot just said, I bet you won't use an Ursa at Jumptown. I won't go to Jumptown because it sucks now. Jumptown is obsolete. Sadly.
block your ship from actually landing safely. So it's better to be outside of that strong wind area and drop the ground vehicle, and then avoid the strong wind by driving in with your ground vehicle. Or with Pyro, you might have already seen it in the CitizenCon demos with the solar flare.
It is the only event that's
when
fun.
your ship gets hit by a solar flare, it basically drops down because it's turned off. So this is also like the dropping from the sky is something that you would avoid when you would have come with a ground vehicle in that situation. But there are also other things that are related to the weather, like limited sight. It's better, or it's safer to go with a ground vehicle versus a spaceship and stuff like that.
In case you don't get why I'm not paying too much attention to what Torsten's saying right now, this is 2016 CitizenCon shit. This is all stuff we've already known has been on the list of something to come in. That was, again, instead of encouraging, forcing ground play, and I'm not sure I like that very much. But it is, as long as it's occasional, I don't think it's too bad. But yeah, if you ever look at the CitizenCon 2016 demo, the one with the sandworm, you're in a Connie, all of a sudden there's some warning, like storm coming in, and then they force you to go down into an Ursa and you drive around on the ground through the storm. It was pretty cool then. Seems still pretty cool to me now, but at the same time, I don't necessarily like the idea of forcing it. Just make it make more sense to do it. But yeah.
So there are plenty of scenarios
server
that we are
meshing would step
currently
it up.
investigating what we can do to actually make ground vehicles more like usable, or like even required for missions.
Cool. All right, we've got about 5 minutes left in the show. We might go a few minutes over.
He said required for missions. Does anybody like that or not like that? I love that. So the idea, like, again, I'm saying don't force, but at the same time, as long as they provide it, think there's Ursa rovers at distribution centers, right? If part of the mission was sneak into the Ursa rover and take it into the, think like every Star Wars show you've ever seen, they're using some Empire ship and sneak their way in with the landing codes or whatever, like that would be awesome. So I love the idea of that.
Because I want to talk about our last topic here, engineering. Obviously, engineering. Everybody's rightfully excited for 4.0, Pyro, and all that stuff, and you should be. For me, we've been talking about engineering so long. You know my feelings on engineering. That's where the birth of multi-crew stuff comes from. So that's my big thing.
It's so fun.
Before we get to these questions, let's revisit the scope. What should people expect from engineering in 4.0?
So as of now, for 4.0, let's start with live support. So we will have live support that has the fire system in it. So life support is also a valid counter for fire that you will see on your ships. We will have room propagation. So you opening a door to the outside will basically evacuate all the atmosphere of your ship to the outside. We have atmosphere maintenance.
The way we've played the game for 10 years and the way we're going to have to play the game is going to be a very difficult learning curve. Very difficult learning curve. Like, all right, I got to make sure I close my door and stuff like that. It's going to be really funny. Really funny. Like, how many times do you just take your helmet off inside your ship when all the doors are open? How many times have you done that? You know what I mean? I never do. With all the doors open on your ship, everyone's saying never. You're all liars. You're all liars. Are you? Give me a break. Never. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Sure.
Where you
You're
as
all
the
lying.
player are
It's so funny.
responsible for.
So you're telling me in a cutlass, when you did rock mining in a cutlass with a rock on aerial that's super hot, and that your drink went down all the time, you drove your rock onto your ship, you got out of it, you closed all of your doors, then took your helmet off, then drank the water, when you never had to do any of that. I don't rock mine. I'm just giving one example. Anytime you've had to drink water in your ship, when you don't have to close your doors, you did anyway. So all of you are epic RPers. I'm sure you walk everywhere as well. Get out of here.
Making sure that your life support
I don't believe
generator runs
any of you.
well enough so that there's enough breathable atmosphere inside the rooms. And yeah, it's already said. So the life support generator is a new item that we will introduce, and the life support generator then will create a new resource that is.
I love this too. I also can't wait to see all of you die in game by screwing up the room system. I can't wait.
So right now it's still called life support resource. Like, we are really, really creative with names. There's a filter that is also a new item that is added as the consumable for the life support.
I love
generator.
all this stuff.
And yeah, that's just the life support segment of.
Says the guy that dies of this first. I'm admitting that it's going to happen to me. I'm not saying it's not going to happen to me. I'm not sitting here on my high horse saying I'm not going to screw this up. I'm going to screw this up a lot before I get used to it. And so are you guys. But you're all trying to talk all high and mighty like it's not going to happen to you. I don't believe you. But I really like if we can stop right now and just talk for a second, the idea of more consumables in your ship, like the fuses and now these filters. How do you guys feel about that stuff? I really like the idea of it, as long as it's very similar to food and drink, where it's a thing that we deal with occasionally, but not a lot of. Right? Maybe the more mistakes we make with our doors, the more we would have to think about it. But I hope that it's one of those things where, like, hey, while you're in Quantum, you mess around with some things. And I think connecting yourself to your ship and kind of making it your own is a good thing, right? Like, the maintenance of your ship, for me, I hope, I don't know if this will happen or not, but I hope, even though it might be tedious, it makes me feel like it's mine. The idea of I never want my ship to be in a bad state, so I want to take care of it. Same with your character, but with injuries and things like that. I really hope that it connects me more to my ship than I'm currently connected to my ship, where you just, when things aren't working, you backspace and claim and all that shit, right?
The resource network release. Talking about engineering, Here we have the power management that will be introduced. You were not able to see it yet in the Arena Commander mode because we were not ready yet. So especially UI is still a lot of work on us that we need, because we need to get it right. It needs
engineering
to be
UI is really
accessible.
bad right now.
It cannot be like this high scientific method of you basically measuring the joules that the power plant. No, we have to make it accessible for the general play audience, but still interesting for those that are really interested in those engineering mechanics. Then we will introduce the relays as the connection point between the items with the fuses. So these are already things that you even see in live in some of the ships that are already prepared. So for example, the Retaliator already has the relay boxes with the fuses inside. And in the Arena Commander experimental mode, you can actually witness their functionality. A huge thing for...
I think their functionality so far is the only thing of the engineering mode I say I have not enjoyed. That's been tedious.
For it is, so that's more on our side. So on the design side is the rebalance of items again. So, but we as already mentioned, we have now, with all the pre-work that has been done for 3.23, we have a very, very clear goal of what we want to achieve here.
That's what
and that is, we want to really facilitate like the items inside a resource network. So items should be more meaningful in ships. So we have a meaningful difference between item classes, for example, where there's a huge difference on the look and feel in terms of gameplay for the civilian and military components, as well as the grades. So this is our internal high goal for the release, that we have a meaningful difference there, so that players' choice actually matters here. And also what we want to achieve here.
That's a 4.0 thing. Sorry, I talked over probably the most important point of the entire show.
Feel in terms of side is the rebalance of items again. So, but we as already mentioned, we have now, with all the pre-work that has been done for 3.
Avenger has 0 physicalized components or compartments. I got newsflash for you. I don't think the C2 is physicalized. Like, I can't pull them out or anything. Like, all of the size 3 components have never gone through any sort of gold standard pass, as far as I'm aware, and they make it work. So I wouldn't stress about it too much. So long as you can see it, they will put something in there, and that'll be that. I'm sure they'll make it work. Or it's going to be very rushed out. You're going to have a similar to the Master Modes experience, where some ships are going to work, some ships are not, and it'll just be a thing, right? So it'll just be a thing that will improve over time, but the ripping the Band-Aid off thing kind of needs to happen. So
3.23, we have a very, very clear goal of what we want to achieve here. And that is, we want to really facilitate like the items inside the resource network. So items should be more meaningful in ships. So we have a meaningful difference between item classes, for example, where there's a huge difference on the look and feel in terms of gameplay for the civilian and military components, as well as the grades. So this is our internal high goal for the release, that we...
Okay, that's their internal high goal, which they most likely will not achieve, is because that sounds incredibly challenging. Or if they do achieve it, he says look and feel, and then gameplay-wise, right after, right? Not visually. So he corrects himself so you don't get confused by that. That'll be cool. But replacing destroyed components is part of the loop. It is not part of the loop in capital-sized or size 3 ships. So your A2, your C2, your Caterpillar, your Carrack, those do not have interactable with multi-tool tractor beam. Those items, you cannot move them with a tractor beam. Reason being is because you cannot move those things through the door. Once again, because they decided to design the ships before they designed the game. And it is a really unfortunate thing. It really, really sucks, but it's a thing. So wait, our capital components are meant to be able to take a beating, I assume. Yes, but the way you deal with capital components, they've said this many times, I'll reiterate for you unless they don't hear, is you're going to bring it to a docking. Like, we know that they want to allow us to recover from soft death or whatever soft death will be in the future, and you can repair them, and you can also swap them at a station. That's how they want you to deal with the larger ships. They don't want you to deal with them on the like on the fly. I think if they were actually taking us down the process of game development, those ships would have never been designed in the way that they are. But they are, and it is what it is. They have not stated that they want to do anything like cutting holes or anything like that, unfortunately. But I think one day maybe that can be some like pie in the sky high level goal after release of the game, but I don't think it'll be at all any part of the release.
We have a meaningful difference there, so that players' choice actually matters here. And also what we want to achieve here is
it's a logical thing to go to a dry dock to do those things.
So players understand
no
what's
big deal
the difference
to me.
between a civilian and an industrial item more easily, and it's very clear to players what to pick for the journey they want to take.
If they deliver on this goal, that will be one of the biggest changes that has ever come to Star Citizen ships. And the start of them actually making the game. From that standpoint. And hopefully we get very rare, hard to find, so on and so forth. Can't buy in shops. Torsten actually hinted at this a year ago at Beacon, that there may be lootable only components.
Something
like
that, sadly, I had a discussion yesterday, will not make it for 4.0. So as of now is the batteries. So we might push the batteries to a later release.
Good. They
Doesn't
were
mean
weird.
that they
Couldn't
won't
understand
come.
them.
It just means they come at a later point, because we want to, like, this is like, it's such a crucial feature, and we need to get it right. And every time that we can spend on polish is better invested than actually forcing additional features in. So we rather would like to spend time in polishing the feature and then just making sure that everything is in. I think no one would like that everything is in there, and it's
batteries were very hard to understand.
Not working, or it's not working well enough. That's the best safe phrasing I could come up with.
I hear you, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. Obviously, when ISC comes back in about a month, one of the stories we'll be telling on our journey to 4.0 will be another revisiting of engineering and life support and stuff like that, and you'll get to see how it's all, working laid out there. So,
shall I continue? Because I'm not done.
Okay.
Let's go.
So there's more. There's more and that is a simple repair. So we have the repair of ship items that you also can already witness in the Arena Commander experimental mode, exchange of fuses, exchange of broken items, and we mentioned that at the beginning.
TLDR, it's like temporary extra power. Yeah, it's just really weird with the UI. It's super hard to understand, and I think the need to polish it and the understanding that it's not in a good state and not delivering it in a shitty one is fucking awesome.
Beginning of this
we need more of that.
That there's now a distortion counter, and that basically leads to the last bit that we will introduce
Charge and drain
with the resource network engineering gameplay, which is malfunctions. So here we will start with 3 malfunctions. So the initial release will come with those 3, which is a fire, damage to the item, and distortion to the item. Because we now have dedicated counters to them, so that we can actually introduce meaningful gameplay, and you're not like just suffering from whatever malfunction the item will suffer from. But
I want you to think about this a little further than just the experimental mode. So you're doing a bounty, like if you've noticed the AI for ship bounties, a little bit more challenging with master modes. Not just the AI, just the fact that you're moving really slowly now makes them easier for them to hit you. And let's say you take some damage. you land your ship and, one of the components went out. Before you go on to the next mission, you could just pull out your tractor beam, salvage the ship you just destroyed, use the RMC or whatever, hopefully new type of materials, and repair those components and get back out on the road. No need to go to a station or anything like that. If you're in space, even easier. EVA, boom, boom, boom. The EVA experience is incredible now. It's not just a multi-crew thing. I want you to think about like the Gladius, like a ship that has its gold standard pass. It could be really, really fun and really, really cool. One day the SRV maybe coming with extra components, replacing broken ones, things like that. Be awesome.
We made sure that the malfunction system is so vast that if we notice that those 3 are not enough yet, that in the later patch or in later releases, we can add more bespoke malfunctions so we can slowly widen the gameplay. Because I can tell you it's already quite a lot that you have to manage and learn. So it will be fun, but it will be also
backspace, back to the station, reclaim ship, grab a new one, rinse and repeat. That's the current gameplay. I've been saying it for a while now. They have wanted to punish you severely for using claims for a long time, but the alpha state of the game is preventing them from doing that. And it's going to prevent them from doing it for a while, I think. But they might do it anyway, first. Second, if the game ever polishes enough, they're going to hit you with it hard. Think the ship price increase, but way worse. I think that's where that's going.
A huge learning curve.
Super long timers, super expensive.
Oh, cool. No, it sounds great.
There's a lot of stuff in engineering, essentially.
Great.
I would like it known that through all these episodes this year and the previous years, I saw some folks giving me credit for asking hard questions or whatever. These people are willing to show up.
He asked people weren't, at least for myself, I wasn't giving him credit for asking hard questions. I was giving him credit for finally asking hard questions. At times, I think he doesn't know the questions to ask. And we pass up on really good opportunities to follow up on things, and I think Jared did a really good job of that last week. Or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. Last week's episode, again, it kind of sucked. And it is what it is. You can't be perfect every week. But since February, these shows have been the backbone of everything. These shows have been incredible. They have barely missed a beat. Everything has been great. They've done a really good job of not overdoing the gameplay videos, doing them just right. And the marketing team has done a whole different story with like the Ursa commercial and shit like that. These have been like the stakes in the stand for us, that every week we come to them and it's so good. And that's why I was so disappointed to see that they were going to be gone for a month. So I was getting a lot of shit in my own video yesterday for being like, what the fuck, man? You guys said you weren't going to take this much time off. And they did. They said they were only going to take a week or 2. 4 weeks is a lot. I know we got extra episodes, but 4 weeks is a lot. So I'm allowed to be disappointed that the only good thing that we have every week to look forward to is not going to be there.
Every week. And they're willing to take.
I know I give Jared shit, but it's been the only constant that we've had. And pun intended. It's literally been the only constant. And I want them to find a way to be constant. Because it's so nice. It's literally feedback. It's not me getting mad. It's none of that shit. It has been so great.
The hard questions and my dumb bullshit like I just did. And
it's my day off.
yeah. So it's just whatever praise you guys ever give to me, I pass it on through to the developers who appear on ISC and SEL. Especially, this person was a great example of that, where it's like, no, I got more I want to share. And it's like, man, I love that shit. I love that.
That's two curses.
And yeah,
today.
this is my med pen. I tried to stow it, but it keeps reappearing in my hand. It's an old bug.
Boston.
That's it, everybody. Thanks for watching our Invictus All Vehicles gameplay SEL. If you haven't checked it out, look at yesterday's ISC, where we revealed the brand new Iron Chad from Drake Interplanetary.
The Caterpillar.
And got a look inside the current gray box progress of the RSI Polaris. They're both really, really, really cool looking, and I'm really excited to get both of them in the game as soon as possible. We're on hiatus. So we're gonna take a few weeks off from ISC, a few weeks off of publishing. We'll be filming,
of course, yeah,
and recording and creating all the great stories for 4.0. We don't get any time off.
Yeah, they do all the recording and stuff. Like that's the thing that I just wish they could do, is figure out a way to kind of be ahead of things where you never appear to have time off. But you do. Right?
And SEO will take next week off because I have a doctor's appointment on the same day. Yeah, health's important. But we'll be back with SEO in 2 weeks. Until then, thank you again to Torsten, to Elliot, to Rich, to Yogi, and of course to everybody who always appears on these.
Please, please, please have open PTU 323, or at least Wave 1-ish. Not Evo, and I won't even notice that SEL was gone or ISC.
Like I said, can't do it without you. I think we're gonna do a raid thing. Probably do a raid thing because it's, they like to do the raid thing. So community folks, if you're watching, you can start the raid thing. Thanks for watching.
See you in a
month. I really
month.
like my job, and you guys make it possible. So thank you for that. And this is a cool med pen also.
I know it doesn't sound like it, but I wouldn't have it any other way than Jared being in charge. The beginning of the show was not good. I will say that. Nobody's perfect, though. I am the last person who thinks anybody should be held to be perfect. But I wouldn't have it any other way. There is no person on planet Earth that can do a better job than him, I think. No chance. But everybody can always do better, right?
I got a blue one too, oxygen. And yes, chat was right. Why am I holding it? Because I look at Twitch chat, and I need it to recover from the damage.
Yes, I need one of those.
Till next time, everybody. Bye.
We all need one of those from looking at Twitch chat. Some of you guys are horrible. But that was good. That was a good show. I think, totally the opposite of last week's show. Talking about the game. Talk about the game. Stop talking about game development. When are we going to learn this lesson? One day we will, right? I feel like if you're going to talk about game development, make a whole different show at this point. There is way too much going on in the game right now. Focus on the game. It's the only thing that matters. That's my opinion. Some of you guys really love game dev and love those things, and you always comment when I say stuff like that. I get that stuff, and I think that stuff should be out there for you. But I really hope they start focusing a lot more on the game, and they have been. That's why this year's been so awesome. There's very little game dev talk and a lot of video game conversation, like Star Citizen talk, which has been really good. Best year so far for Star Citizen content from coming out of Star Citizen, whether it's been patches, posts, events, ISC, SCL, Arena Commander stuff. Like, it's been the best year ever. It's not even close. 2024 has been amazing. And when they're going on hiatus, I feel like it's the end of an era. That's why I was so frustrated yesterday. I hope you guys understand that. I feel like they are ending this really, really good ride I just got to hope that 323 comes out, and we'll see. We're not getting it until Wednesday, it looks like, though. So, which will probably mean Friday next week in reality, right? But yeah, it's been a really good, really good few months. They went from February until the end of May. Pretty strong. It had to end at some point, but I'm allowed to be bummed out when it is. But overall, really good show, and yeah, I look forward to breaking it down for week in review now, I guess. All right. Thanks for watching.